welcome back, everybody. I hope everyone had a very nice weekend. Today we are going to begin talking about some actual disorders. So we spent the first part of our time together with some foundational stuff about the history and the basic paradigms that we'll be seeing over and over again about diagnosis and assessment and the research methods that you'll be looking at all throughout the semester. So now we're going to go in and start tackling some of the disorders. So some of you who've already been in this section have already begun that by reading a case about someone with generalized anxiety disorder. So a couple of announcements. The exam answers to the multiple choice are already posted on vSpace. There's a folder. Your scores will be posted by Thursday, if not sooner, so you can see how you did. And I'll have more to say about the exam scores in class on Thursday. So we're going to talk about anxiety disorders today, and we'll talk about specific phobias here in a little bit. But first I thought I'd start out by seeing if you had ever heard of any of these particular phobias. So this is really just an exercise in Greek and Latin derivatives here. So these are not actual phobias, I'll say. So phronimophobia. Anybody ideas about what that one might be? Something you do not want to have when you're a student here at Cal. It's severe. Thank you. Doesn't exist. Okay. Blenophobia. Anybody? Fear what? Flying. It's kind of disgusting, but most people don't have a fear of it. Okay, allophobia. Anybody here in Cal band? Fear of flutes. And then my favorite, first of all, pronounce it. Ready? Go. Fear of long words. No, that is not what it is, although there probably is. We could probably generate that. This one instead is fear of Friday the 13th. Okay. They are not really phobias. Those are just, again, Greek and Latin derivatives. Okay, so let's talk about what phobias really are. And let's start by thinking about two emotions that are central to the anxiety disorders. Of course, anxiety ought to be central. They're called anxiety disorders after all. But fear is also an important emotion here. So fear, which is what this guy is showing on his face, a prototypical expression of fear, refers to, it's a negative emotion that refers to an immediate present danger or threat. So if a snake was right up in your face, you might show that kind of a response on your face. Fear, there's some sort of immediate threat, danger, something happening right now that requires your attention, and you may actually look like this on your face. You would show all sorts of interesting changes in your body as well if you're having a fear response. So what, though, is anxiety? So anxiety is not an emotion that deals with something happening right now necessarily, but it tends to be more of a future-oriented emotion. So maybe you're having some anxiety over how you did on our first exam. You don't know how you did yet. The scores aren't posted. They will be on Thursday. So anxiety tends to be more of a future-oriented emotion or more of a diffuse sort of emotion, that things you might feel anxious about something unknown. So it may not necessarily be in the future, but you just may feel anxious about going to a new event where you'll meet a bunch of new people. You might feel some anxiety about that. Or you might feel some anxiety about all sorts of things, but they're not things that are happening right now in the immediate present where there's a direct threat to you. Now, one thing to keep in mind about these emotions, though, is that we need these emotions. They're very adaptive for us, as unpleasant as they may be. So it's important that we experience fear when there is an immediate threat, because fear can help us get out of the way of that immediate threat. So ideally, if we find ourselves in a situation, we're hiking, say, in Tilden Park, and there's a snake, and we feel fear, what would we do? We would probably jump out of the way or slowly back away from the snake. Fear will compel us to get out of danger, to try to remove ourselves from the immediate threat. Now, anxiety also is important, serves some very important functions as well, as unpleasant as it is to feel anxious and unsettled and worried and nervous, all of that. But a little bit of anxiety, at least, can help us perform better. So perhaps last week, Thursday, when we had our first exam, some of you were feeling a little anxious, a little on edge, but that actually may have helped you prepare and perform better on the exam. Too much anxiety, of course, can be crippling, and where you are sitting staring at an exam saying, I have no idea what this is, it's like it's a different language, So you really, too much anxiety is a bad thing, but a little bit of anxiety is good for us. It helps us to perform in different situations at our peak. So I want us to remember that. We're taking a tour now with anxiety disorders where there's some sort of a problem with fear or anxiety, or in many cases, some of these disorders involve both of these emotions. So sometimes it's the case where people have too much anxiety. So that's certainly the case in generalized anxiety disorder. There's too much anxiety that's happening. A little bit is okay, but too much can be problematic. Also, another problem with fear or anxiety could be that it's out of context. So this is the case in a panic disorder where someone's having a panic attack, and the context is not an immediate threat like a snake or somebody pointing a gun at you or a truck barreling down the road right at you. None of those things are happening. Instead, somebody might simply be sitting in a classroom where there is no immediate threat out of a completely different context, and they have an extreme fear response. And another problem that can happen with fear and anxiety and the anxiety disorders is the timing of the emotional response could be a little bit off. So somebody who has a specific phobia to snakes, for example, or animal-specific phobia is pretty common. Someone might have a fear reaction in the presence of a snake, which very well may be threatening, but then that feeling or the feeling of fear and the changes in your body don't go away. They linger. They tend to persist. Even if the snake is removed, people may remain jacked up with that fear response. So that the resolution of fear is a little bit, the timing of it anyway, is a little bit off in the case of specific phobias. So too much of these emotions, the timing, the context of them, is what centrally defines a lot of these anxiety disorders that we'll talk about. And as we go through the different disorders, we'll talk about the kinds of emotions, is it fear, anxiety, or both that are involved. And another thing to keep in mind as we talk about these disorders, it's not just these emotions, but it's the way we think about situations that are very important. There are lots of cognitive explanations and factors that play into the anxiety disorders here. So we might be thinking about a situation in a certain way, and that's really elevating fear and anxiety, but if we change the way we think about it, that emotion can then help kind of dampen itself and go back to more healthy or at least not so extremely distressing levels. So this is a picture from your book about the changes in DSM-5. So there was kind of a reshuffling of the chapters in DSM-5, where it used to be the case in DSM-4 that if you see over here on the left panel, all of these disorders were in this big chapter called anxiety disorders. Whereas now in DSM-5, what's considered in the anxiety disorders chapter are only those things up there at the top in blue. Generalized anxiety disorder, agoraphobia, panic disorder, social anxiety disorder, and specific phobia. Now there's a different chapter for obsessive compulsive and related disorders. That includes obsessive compulsive disorder, body dysmorphic, and hoarding. And then there's another chapter now that pulls apart the trauma and stressor related disorders. Who cares? Just chapter names. What's the implication of that? Well, the reason that the crafters of DSM-5 did this is that there's a lot more similarity between those disorders at the top, generalized anxiety disorder, panic, specific phobia, than with these other disorders. And so the reshuffling of the chapters in DSM-5 is intended to communicate to the field field, the mental health professionals, researchers, that we know a lot about anxiety disorders. These things share a lot of similar features. There's a lot of shared etiology or causal factors for those, but obsessive compulsive disorder doesn't share some of those same things as the other anxiety disorders do. And these trauma-related disorders, PTSD, they don't share some of those same things. The symptoms are different, some of the causes are different, so that's why they're pulled apart. Now, as you'll see when we talk about these different disorders, and we'll spend the next 3 classes going through all of these, or most of them, you'll see that the symptoms differ from disorder to disorder. Some of the causes are the same, particularly for those up there in blue. But when it comes to treatment, a lot of the treatments that we know are effective are very similar across all of these disorders. And I'll just jump to the punchline right now and say exposure, the form of cognitive behavior therapy, is important in treating all of these disorders, whether they're in the chapter on anxiety disorders or the trauma and stressor-related disorders. Exposure to whatever trauma, exposure to something that people are having obsessive thoughts about, exposure to snakes, if somebody has a snake phobia, is an important part of cognitive behavioral interventions for all of these. All right, so let's start. I'm just going to try to hit the high points of some of these disorders. So new in DSM-5, which wasn't reflected in that picture I just showed you, is a couple of the childhood anxiety disorders are now in the chapter on anxiety disorders in DSM-5. Separation anxiety disorder is in the chapter called anxiety disorders. It used to be in DSM-4 in the chapter with other childhood disorders. And another one that is now in the anxiety disorders chapter is selective mutism. So separation anxiety disorder, typically think of as a childhood disorder where parents' child separated. For example, when a little kid has to go to school for the first time, kindergarten, and it's not the typical response where kids cry and it's hard and they're separated and they feel really anxious, but a much more severe kind of an interaction where a child actually refuses to go to school or will not be separated from a parent. New in DSM-5, however, they've expanded this, so it's not just a disorder for kids. It's not just for kids anymore. People, adults can have separation anxiety as well. Anytime there's a severe kind of anxiety reaction at being separated from a significant attachment figure, could be a parent, it could be a spouse, partner, significant separation there cause extreme anxiety that interferes with functioning, that could be separation anxiety in adults. Selective mutism just refers to a child who plays supposedly in social situations where it's supposed to be talking, not talking, not feeling incredible anxiety, and it's just not talking. I'm not going to say too much more about these. We don't do that in the book, but just to point out that these are childhood disorders, and that separation anxiety now is something that can impact adults as well. She said, when you're talking about kids and adults, what age range are we talking about? Any age range for adults. So kids typically are determined to be adults right or wrong after age 18, but this could be kids, usually it's around school age when these symptoms emerge. We're not talking about infants and toddlers showing this kind of anxiety. It's usually around school age that this emerges. She said, is there a comorbidity between separation anxiety and codependency? So there's 2 code words in there. Codependency is not a DSM disorder. It's a psychological construct that people who write self-help books came up with. So it's not something that we'll talk about a lot. It's a good buzzword that people use and they think they know what it means, but it's actually it's one of those things that's very difficult to test. So do you remember we talked about the 3 big things associated with research? You want to be able to test it, generalize it, replicate it. Codependency is one of those things that is very difficult to test. All right, panic disorder. Let's talk about panic disorder. So what makes up a diagnosis of panic disorder? Well, frequent unexpected panic attacks. How frequent? Well, the DSM-5 doesn't tell us. It just says frequent. So it could be 2, could be 10, it's unclear. Now, you might think, well, that's weird, can't we be a little bit more specific? But it would be equally appropriate to criticize the DSM if they said to meet the criteria for panic disorder, you have to have 5 unexpected panic attacks. Well, where do you come up with 5? That's arbitrary. Yes, it is. So they've opted to leave it broad. Frequent unexpected panic attacks. Now, what is a panic attack? Well, a panic attack, to have a panic attack, you have to have at least 4 symptoms that peak within several minutes. Again, that is now less vague in the DSM. Now, what are the kinds of symptoms? Well, if you look at the DSM-5, there are about 13 different symptoms that comprise a panic attack. You only have to have 4 of them. If you have fewer than 4, it's called a limited symptom attack. Because again, there's nothing magical about the number 4 here. It's just that most people who have a panic attack tend to have 4 or more. But there are plenty of people in the world who have 3 symptoms, and that's why we call that a limited symptom attack. Now, what are these things? Well, heart palpitations, or feeling like your chest is pounding really hard, like it's going to pop out of your chest, sweating, feeling short of breath, like you're hyperventilating, shaking or kind of trembling. Another symptom, the feeling like you're choking, kind of like it goes with shortness of breath, where you can't catch your breath and you feel like you're not getting an air and you're choking. Having chest pain, some nausea, where you feel sick to your stomach, feeling dizzy, having the chills, or you can also have heat sensations, most commonly the chills, goes kind of with trembling. Feeling numbness, throughout your body. Something called derealization, where you feel like you are kind of an observer on the reality around you. You're kind of like up here, you're observing reality around you. Very disorienting sort of symptom. The fear of going crazy, losing your mind, or fear of dying. Like that's it, I'm dying. So any of those 4 can make up a panic attack. So if you have, say, shortness of breath, you've got some numbness, you've got some chest pain, some heart palpitations, you're feeling a little dizzy, nauseous, what do you think might be happening to you? What? If you didn't know what panic attacks were, what do you think would be happening to you? Heart attack, exactly. Many people will go to the emergency room with those symptoms thinking they're having a heart attack. And you run into the emergency room and you tell the emergency room nurse, here are my symptoms. They're going to think you're having a heart attack too, because those are the symptoms of a heart attack. So they're going to rush you in and they're going to put some EKG electrodes all over you and they're going to probably take some blood and they're going to find out fairly quickly that you're not having a heart attack. But behaviorally, some of the symptoms of panic attack are really indistinguishable from a heart attack. So many people, when they have their first panic attack and it comes out of nowhere, remember, it's not like somebody's pointing a gun at you or there's a big snake. You're just all of a sudden you're sitting, maybe you're watching TV and all of a sudden you have this. You think, holy smokes, I must be having a heart attack. And so many people end up in emergency rooms and then they're kind of relieved to find out that they're not having a heart attack, but then they're kind of stumped. Well, what the heck is a panic attack? What do I do with that? One of the things that happens with panic attacks, and in fact part of the criteria for the diagnosis of panic disorder, is that people then develop a lot of anxiety and worry and fear, but mostly anxiety, about having another panic attack. For people who've had panic attacks, it's the most aversive, unpleasant thing that they've ever experienced in their life. Just imagine what that might feel like if you're sitting, comfortably, you're in class, you're watching TV with your friends, and all of a sudden, within minutes, out of nowhere, you feel like you're going to die. You have chest pains, you're nauseous, you're dizzy, you're numb, you can't catch your breath, you feel like you're choking. That is extremely unpleasant. You're having an extremely strong reaction, as if there was some immediate threat. You're having a very strong strong fear response, but there is no threat. And that's so aversive that people then really become very worried about having another one. And so they start to think, well, I was out with my friends when I had that one, so maybe I shouldn't go back to that bar. Or maybe I shouldn't go to any more football games. Or I was in class when I had that panic attack. Maybe I shouldn't go to that class anymore because I might have. And so people may then start to avoid these situations, all in the service of trying to prevent having another panic attack. So for panic disorders, having these frequent, unexpected, out-of-the-blue attacks, coupled with this anxiety over having another one, and avoiding situations that may or may not actually provoke another panic attack. So it can really interfere with people's functioning. Now, yeah. What she asked, what's the maximum amount of time that a panic attack could last, or is there a maximum amount of time where you wouldn't call it a panic attack? And there is no answer to that. It's not like, well, a panic attack after 10 minutes is something else. Yeah, it's something, typically doesn't last for an hour. It's something that peaks within minutes, anywhere from 2 to 10 minutes, and then it kind of resolves. But it doesn't go on and on. You're not in the state of jacked up, having all those symptoms for a long period of time. DSM-5 did something different compared to DSM-4. Now in DSM-5, there's a separate category for agoraphobia. In DSM-4, there was this convoluted thing. You could have panic disorder without a history of agoraphobia without a history of panic attacks. It was all confusing. They were kind of tied up with one another. In DSM-5, agoraphobia is a separate diagnostic category. It's no longer a subtype of panic disorder. It's a separate diagnostic category. And that was done to be more consistent with the International Classification of Disease, and also to recognize that probably half of the people or more who actually have agoraphobia, which I'll talk about in a minute, do not have panic attacks. Some do, but there are many people who have agoraphobia who do not have a panic attack. Now, what is agoraphobia? Well, agoraphobia literally translated means fear of the marketplace. And people who have agoraphobia have a fear of going out into open spaces. So they do not like to be in public. They do not like to go to the grocery store, to go to the post office, to go to class, to go anywhere outside of the home. And so in its most severe form, people with agoraphobia can become housebound, where they're terrified. The prospect of leaving the home for anything is terrifying. And so people become housebound, don't want to leave their house. The idea of doing even the simplest of tasks, like going to the post office or going to the dentist, requires an immense amount of preparation to be able to leave and actually do that, because there's so much anxiety associated with going out into the open and being around other people and just being away from the safety of the home. Some people have panic attacks, but again, many people with agoraphobia do not, and that's the main rationale for why it was separated in DSM-5. Well, we'll talk about treatment here in a bit. So she was saying, what's the best thing to do for somebody who's having a panic attack? And as a friend, what you can do, and I don't know if that's what you're asking, I'll talk about professional treatment in a minute, but as a friend, you could just try to remain calm yourself and say, you may not know it's a panic attack yourself, but if you knew it was a panic attack, try to remain calm and just be a calming social presence and stay there with your friend. Don't run out of the room and try. That would not be helpful, but just try to remain calm. And it's hard to do. I make it sound like it's so easy, but if you're seeing someone have a panic attack, it's very hard for you to sit still and to remain calm and try to be as reassuring as you can. She asked, are there different kinds of severity of panic attacks in addition to limited symptom attack, which is 3 or fewer symptoms? The answer is yes. And in general, one of the things that DSM-5 has done for every disorder has included some way of trying to capture the severity of a particular disorder. So there are severity scales that are now part of the DSM-5, and it varies by disorder, where a mental health professional can rate the severity from mild to moderate to severe. And there are some anchors that are associated with the severity that clinicians and researchers are supposed to use. These are all brand new. They've been tested in field trials, but we don't know enough about them. But presumably, yes, we can rate the severity of panic disorder and ADHD, any of the disorders in the DSM-5. Right. Slightly different. I hear what you're saying about, that can be calming to elevate parasympathetic activity, but I wouldn't recommend it because for some people who are disoriented, they feel like they're going to die, unless they know you really well, if somebody is coming up and hugging you, that may just elevate the fear. Now, I know you're saying, it would be a friend or somebody who would trust you, but I don't know that I would recommend it, even though I understand the mechanism that you're going for here to try to decrease sympathetic nervous system activity and increase parasympathetic activity would be. Right. Family, right, not a stranger. Like, you look like you're having a panic attack. Let's hug it out, right? You wouldn't do that. Right. All right, I have a little short video here of this guy because he just talks so eloquently about his struggles with agoraphobia. So if I can get it to play, which is always a question. Let's see.
I just wanted to talk about agoraphobia. I was watching some of the videos online, and I just want to say that I'm 31 years old now, and I've had panic attacks since I was 15. The agoraphobia really didn't start to set in until my late 20s. It's really rough, talking about this because, I was watching Brady Cat's video. There is a stigma attached to this illness, and a lot of people do not understand it. I find myself having to explain it to medical professionals at times. I just find that you can turn on TV now and you can see all these commercials about depression, and people seem to understand that illness. And but panic attacks and agoraphobia, not so much. People still kind of use that word like, "Oh, I was so nervous before my test, I had a panic attack." Or they throw the word around. They don't understand what a panic attack actually is. It's not a little fear. It's not being a little bit nervous. It's all encompassing, and it will control your life. I've seen therapists before it for many years on and off, and they mean well.